But it's okay, because you know who suffered worse? Haymitch Abernathy.
Wait, okay.
Like, life could be so much worse, actually.
Hello and welcome to Read the Last Page,
A Yap Session
book club
with your two favorite long-distance best friends.
The book we read this month is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins.
And since we finally read the last page, let's talk about it. Hi, B. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
The sun is finally coming out.
The sun is rising. What did you say?
In New York City. Oh, wait. Literally. I didn't plan that. But I'm getting my freckles back. You can't tell on my Zoom, like my Lenovo laptop camera, but I'm getting some freckles back, which always just makes me feel more me.
Yeah, I love your freckles.
Thank you. I got my new glasses.
Oh my god, love. Wait, I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
Okay, they look really great.
Thank you. They're not that different from my old ones, but just enough. They kind of sometimes give me a headache though, so I'm a little staying wary, but but it's good to have. My prescription didn't change actually, so I can wear both of them, so that's nice.
Okay.
And then since this book cover is purple, I brought my purple grape Olipop. Olipops are back in my life. I'm gonna open it up for the mic. Here we go. There, you got some ASMR.
I'm obsessed with ASMR, and B loves to incorporate it into my life as much as possible. Well, much appreciated. Actually, last night my roommates and I had a friend over, and we were all watching something on our YouTube, and like it was hooked up to my YouTube, and so my roommate Haley was typing something in, and the first letter was just A, and you can see my history is just like ASMR blah blah blah, ASMR blah blah blah, ASMR blah blah. I was like, guys, you cannot judge me for that.
Yeah, but it's okay, we all know. So
it's true. It's like, sorry, I have to get to bed at night somehow, and that's truly what happens. But yeah. Well, I love that you came on theme.
Yeah, I was gonna try to wear like a dark purple shirt, but I don't really have one, so this was my next best option.
I didn't even think about dressing on theme, and now I feel like annoying. Not annoying. I'm annoyed. I missed the opportunity.
I never have before, so I don't know why I thought of it today.
I love that. Yeah, I'm doing great. I've had like a really intense few weeks, and so now I'm just like, I'm hoping I can be on the downhill of it all, you know what I mean? Like I can't mention one thing because I don't know what the results are going to be, and I don't want to jinx it, but like kind of made a big career move in a way.
But I got you.
Yeah, she's on my wavelength. So that's been crazy. Yeah. And then I had to get a root canal on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was horrible. Hey guys, don't recommend that. Truly, if you can avoid.
Yeah, I remember one of my sisters having to do that, and it was like a big deal.
It was like, so I've been having really bad like mouth pain for I think maybe almost 3 weeks, and I was like trying to like take Advil, and I was like not ignoring it, but I was like, I don't know, maybe I just have like a sensitive tooth or something, and like I need to just like avoid what I'm eating. Anyway, it got to the point where I was like genuinely calling my dentist, crying like, hey, can you squeeze me in? It was so bad. And then I get there and they're like, this tooth has to be fixed today. And so like I sat down in the dentist chair at like 10 a.m. thinking they were gonna tell me I had like a really bad cavity or something.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, we gotta do a root canal. I was literally done with it by like 1:30, and like all that just like bam bam bam.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy, and it hurts like a lot still.
I bet.
So yeah, and I'm not even done. I have to go back and like get a crown, but it's okay because you know who suffered worse? Haymitch Abernathy.
Wait, okay.
Like life could be so much worse. No, I know, and it was actually what's so annoying is that I was in like a lot of pain for the majority of this month, and so it was like really hard for me to actually read because I couldn't focus. And so it was like I was struggling with like the beginning of this book, and then luckily I feel better now, and so like finishing it up I was fine, but like man, that was tough.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Speaking of our podcast in context to our real life, you know, I nanny, and the young girl that I nanny, I mentioned something about, like, because I always bring my book, because like when she does homework, I'll just like read my book, and then if she needs help with her homework, I'm right there. And I think she asked me something like, why do you read so much, or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, like my best friend and I have a book club podcast.
Hey. Yeah.
And she was like basically like laughing at it. She likes to, you know,
joke with
jest with me. Yeah. I was like, name redacted. To be cringe is to be free. And she said to me, then you must be very, very free. She thinks I'm so cringy, I think.
There's something so humbling about being around people who are from, like, you know, a completely different generation than you. And you're like, oh man, because it's like, listen, actually, no, I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm thinking a lot about like how like there was a wave in our time where, you know, I'm thinking specifically Tumblr. We were so like not anti-cringe, we were so like pro-cringe in a way. Like it was like almost like cool to be a nerd. Do you know what I mean? At least in the online space. I don't know what was going on outside of that. But online, it was like, you know, people like were really into fandoms, and people were really into like being kind of dorky, or like just being a nerd was like so like monetized in a way. And then I think we got kind of like anti that. Like the other side of the spectrum is like now everyone's like, oh, we're so anti-cringe. Like everything's embarrassing. La 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 la. And now I feel like maybe this is just because we're in our 20s. I feel like we're coming out on the other side of it, of being like, no, to be cringe is to be free again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think the kiddos are getting that message.
No, they're not.
It's tough.
Like, it's also probably just like, you know, I'm her nanny babysitter. Which, like, I think she said it partly just to be fun. We liked, you know, we like to kind of, you know, be fun with each other. But I'm like, I know there's an edge of truth to everything she says.
That's so funny.
But I love her, though.
Peace and love to her, truly.
Yeah. Shall we talk about Sunrise on the Reaping? Yeah. Do you want me to do the synopsis, or did you come prepared?
I didn't come prepared, and I meant to come prepared. Okay. Oh my goodness. I was like, this time I'm going to actually do my homework, and I'm going to be good about it. And no, we can you can do it.
It's up to you. I don't care.
Yeah, you can do it. But can I give a little, like, I don't know, a caveat maybe at the beginning?
Sure.
I'm assuming a lot of people might be clicking on this because this is a kind of hot topic book at the moment, and I'm assuming a lot of people just like to hear people talk about it. So hello, if you're from the Hunger Games fandom, peace and love to you. We're gonna do a little bit of a non-spoiler section, and then we're gonna go into our spoilers later. I think for the most part, we're probably just going to be focusing on Sunrise on the Reaping. I don't think we're going to be touching too much into the other books.
Not like, really? Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't read The Hunger Games, if you haven't read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and you're scared of spoilers, maybe don't listen.
Yeah, I would say, like, once we get into the spoiler section, it could be a spoiler for any of the Hunger Games books. Because, like,
this is the 5th. So
there's a lot of culminating factors in this things coming together, so we wouldn't want you to have a spoiled reading experience for this amazing series.
True. And also I want to say to this, if you disagree, Laura, we can cut this, but
okay,
I don't think either one of us are like mega massive Hunger Games stans in the way that like we're coming in here with theories, with every single Easter egg bookmarked, with every like la la la. We're just here to like chat about this book because we both have like ties to the Hunger Games being an incredibly impactful series to us when we were younger, and like we're just average fans, I would say, of the series. Like we love it, but like we're not scouring the Reddit boards, you know what I mean?
Right. So I might say I'm a little higher than average enjoyer, but definitely not scouring Reddits. Yes. And definitely not like theory crafting and but trust, I will be liking almost every edit that I see on TikTok.
Literally like I just want to give the viewers a very good flat out kind of like, this is where we're at, because I know there's so much Hunger Games content out there, and I don't want people coming here thinking we're going to be giving them like such juicy, crazy hot theory takes, whatever.
It's going to be more about how we felt reading it, what it evoked in us, what we noticed about the writing and the text, and I guess not as much about like the fandom and the lore and all that stuff, the Easter eggs, which we'll talk about some of them, but just not all of them. Anyway, just wanted to give that. No, that's so happy to have you here. I'm glad you said that. Cool. Okay, so let's see. I did not come prepared either, but so the Sunrise on the Reaping, there's no is the 5th installment in the Hunger Games series, written by Suzanne Collins, which of course has the first trilogy, and then there was a 4th book that came out, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is a prequel. And then this book just came out, and this one is a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, but it happens after The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so it's kind of nested right in between them. And so one of our main characters in the first series, Haymitch Abernathy, he is the mentor to Katniss and Peeta. And because he's a mentor, that means like he won his games back in his time when he was reaped or put into the Hunger Games. And so this is about him. Is it his 16th birthday? I can't remember for sure. I believe it is. So his birthday actually is the day of the reaping. So every year he has to celebrate his birthday with that. And so it's about his journey through the games. And the relevance here, like, not the relevance, but like, why was this book written? It's written to give us more perspective on Haymitch's character that we already know from the original trilogy. So you could read this on its own, but it's going to make a lot more sense having already known his future self. I don't think it would ever be meant to be read alone, and I also don't think you would ever be meant to read these in chronological order. It's kind of like the Star Wars. You need to read them in release order. And I'm like not really sure what else to say that's not going to be like spoilery for like a synopsis, but it's about him being a part of the Hunger Games. I mean, that's what it is. I guess one more thing to add is like, if you're aware of Hunger Games lore, these things called quarter quells are super impactful and huge, and so that just means like every 25 years when there's a big anniversary of the Hunger Games, they up the stakes. And so, for example, Catching Fire was the 75th Hunger Games, and so they pulled back past tributes to recompete in the Hunger Games, which was really insane and crazy. And this one, what they did, because it's the 50th, so Haymitch's Hunger Games was the 50th Hunger Games, so they doubled all of the tributes. So that means that instead of 25 or 24? Yeah, 24. Yes, 24. Instead of 24 tributes, there were 48. And so that makes it a bit harder. So that's just also probably... Yeah, a lot more grief. No matter, like, that was one thing I was thinking about before anybody died, before we even got anywhere. It's like, there's now going to be up to 48 families. Or more like 47 technically, because there's the one Victor, but like the amount of families that are going to face grief and loss and the direct repercussions of this is doubled. And it's tough. But yeah, no, that's a really good, I think that's as much as we can say as far as like not spoiling any of the premise of it. I also want to say, if you haven't read this yet and you're just intrigued, maybe you have read the Hunger Games, maybe you've even read like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and you're just like, what is the vibe of this one? I would compare it, actually, I think if you
have read the Hunger Games, like specifically the first 2 books, I think this is like the most similar to like Catching Fire and the Hunger Games that you're gonna get out of all the books. I think Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was definitely its kind of like own
it had a different tone.
Yes, and it was just very different, and like love what she did on that. But yeah, it's like if you weren't vibing with that, I know a lot of people kind of had mixed feelings about that one, and you want something that's more similar to the original trilogy. I think this definitely kind of is like a return to her original format.
Like Stranger Things, like season 3 was like kind
of like an oddball.
Yeah, like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like it has a different note to it.
Yeah.
But then like season 4, which I mean I've only seen it once, so I don't really remember. But I feel like it was kind of
a return to its past self.
Yeah, like a more of a reflection of the earlier 2.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, is there anything we want to talk about, like about the writing and stuff, before we get into like free for all?
Free for all, truly. Well, I guess we can both just kind of say, did you love this? Because I loved this.
I did love it. I will say, and nobody come for me, I don't think it would be my favorite of
I don't think it's my favorite of them either.
But I still think it was really good.
I think it was an incredible, like, it felt like I was like returning to something that I like just so deeply loved as a child. And like I said, since Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was its own thing, I didn't so much feel that when I was reading it. I think I felt it more like with the community coming together to like rally with the movie and everything that came out. But as far as like the actual text goes, I wasn't feeling that so much with Ballad. But this one, it just like I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling feelings that I remember feeling for the first time when I was like 13 and reading this. Or the series for the first time. And I'm like, it's so great that like I can find, and also this isn't a dig on young adult fiction, but I just don't read young adult super often anymore, and especially dystopian. And so it's like it's so great to know that like this specific genre is still like bringing me
alive
so much so much joy, and like also like really not joy. But you know, like it's just like I'm like, wow, I'm just like really like engaged and like fascinated by this.
Okay, so I remember when we were younger and dystopian books were really popular. And something I always thought was like, oh, well, we're only getting to read about like the one time that like the main character makes the big change happen, like Katniss, or like in Divergent we're reading about Triss. And I've always been like, but what is it like for like all the other people and all the years leading up to this like, you know, climatic moment in the history of Panem or whatever. And so I really liked that we get to read this. Kind of applies to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes too, but Sunrise on the Reaping, because it's like when I was reading the Hunger Games initially, it's like, well, of course we're gonna like be inserted into the story right before everything this main event happens that we can't, like, the world will never be the same. But it's like, but we obviously know there's been 73 years before that of the games being made, them being like perfected, them being monetized, them being, and it's like, how did we get from point A to point B, you know? And so it's like now with this one, we had like an insertion, like kind of in the halfway, a little past halfway mark of like when the game started versus where we were when we met Katniss. And it's just like, it's really cool to get to read more of like the history that led up to what we know and love is like the main trilogy. And I just really like that, because I feel like there's so many times like you read a book series or something and you always want more, but it's like with the Hunger Games, it's like I don't think we need to read more about Katniss and Peeta, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
You know, but it's like, but I want more context of Panem and
Yeah.
you know, and so
agree.
that's what this book gives. It's just
Yeah.
it's just so cool and exciting that
Yes.
like we get to kind of know more about just the history. And I think it and I feel like with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, like that's on one end, the Hunger Games trilogy is on the other bookend, and then this one's like feels like it's kind of right in the middle. And so we have like a nice, we know this, we know this, we know this, and then it's, I feel like I can understand, I feel like I'm like studying history almost, like reading these
Yeah.
books, you know?
Yeah.
Like I can understand the progression of how we got to Katniss and
Yes.
her time and her games and her leading a rebellion. It makes sense when we see all these seeds that were planted along the way.
Yes. I have two things I want to say, and I'm going to hope that I'm not going to forget the second point by the time I finish the first one. But I think, and not getting too much into spoilers here, because I do think I want to talk more about this in the spoiler section. But I think that's what's so kind of gorgeous about writing this book. It's both gorgeous and just devastating because, you know, we are 25 years away from like the events of the Hunger Games, and I think it's like really, the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I wonder why she decided to write this. And I think by the end I kind of decided that it's kind of in a way trying to show us how slow moving the revolution is. And it's like, and it's so heartbreaking to really read and know that like dramatic irony of the whole entire book, kind of, and you're just like reading this and you're realizing, hey, it's not gonna work this time. And you know, and it's just like, as hard as that is to read, having the context of everything going on in the Hunger Games, I think it's so again, like both sad and then also just like, okay, but like things are gonna come back. And that's somehow optimistic in a way. But also I wanted to say that I think that's what also is so genius about Suzanne Collins, is it would be so easy for her to like just like be whipping out these books for monetization purposes, you know what I mean, or just like get money off of it and dip out again. But like every book she's written adds so much context and complexities and like richness to this world that she's creating and all the characters. And I think especially now stepping away and looking back and seeing like we have this whole series of like every like specifically District 12 victor and their start and their end, and kind of how this society and like living under this oppression has impacted them. It just feels really, I don't want to say satisfying because it's not satisfying. It's like actually really upsetting, but like it feels
but it's
like
full circle.
It's so full circle. Yeah, it feels like a great final note. Do you know what I mean? Like I just feel very like, okay, this is complete. And I think actually ending with Haymitch was probably like the perfect way to do that.
Yeah. So. Oh, I just got chills.
Literally. Yeah, I hope that doesn't give too much away to anybody who hasn't read anything yet, but
I'm assuming people listening to this one specifically would probably have already read it, but we like to give a synopsis beforehand in case someone's wanting to hear and decide if they should read the book.
True.
So
it's also so hard to like be like, oh, am I giving away spoilers for the Hunger Games? Because the Hunger Games to me, I'm like, everyone, you should probably know what goes on in the Hunger Games. Right. But we highly recommend, but we also highly recommend that you read the original trilogy first, then Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, then this one. I actually think too, before we move on, I almost wish I like had read all the books before reading this, because I feel like there's so much I just completely forgot about or probably went over my head, because it like this book specifically relies so much on the past work with Suzanne Collins in this universe. And, you know, again, I think its purpose is to add just like a lot of context to the story as a whole. But it really, there's characters that you see in other books. There's things that happen in other books that happen in this book too. It's just you got to have that knowledge somewhat in your mind. And so if it's not super fresh, I actually recommend maybe, if you can, maybe try a reread of the whole series and then come to this one. Yeah. But
I would love to one day in the future, like, do a reread of all 5 in a row.
I think I need to do that soon, actually, because this destroyed me in a good way. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that might be all.
Yeah. We just gotta yap about, all of it now.
I know. I just want to get into it.
Okay. Spoilers ahead. For all 5 books, possibly. We're gonna be talking about this one, but they're so connected, you never know. So just be aware of that.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I saw that you had like paragraphs of notes. So you want to start with something?
If you're watching, this is what I've got going on. Just like hordes and hordes and hordes of notes. Let me see.
You might almost think was an English major.
Just a little
has
bit.
An English degree.
Just a little bit. Okay. Well, I guess the best place to start was probably at the beginning. Correct?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So the reveal on the very first line that this is Haymitch's birthday.
Yeah.
And that this man's gone through 25 years of being a tribute for 1 year, and then of course like a mentor for the next 24 every year on his birthday.
Yeah.
Sick and twisted, and also just like so heartbreaking because Haymitch is such an interesting character to me, because for the entirety of the Hunger Games, he's a very he keeps his cards close to his chest. He kind of really only gives Katniss and Peeta, and therefore the reader, the basic, this is what you need to know, I got everything else kind of handled. And so it's like, we really only get to see this kind of outer persona that he puts on. And I think just like even getting the littlest context is so heartbreaking. And so to start with like, hey, by the way, the worst day of his life is also his birthday. Just a fun fact. Like, that is so upsetting, and also just a really great place to start. I love that every book of this book and the Hunger Games, really, I love they both start on the reaping day.
Yeah.
Like, and then we're gonna follow it from there on out.
Right.
Like, we truly get right into it.
This is kind of skipping ahead beyond the beginning, but just because you're talking about Haymitch and context, and it's like, he plays his cards close to his chest, and it's like, when you first meet Haymitch in the Hunger Games, it's like, it's not that you hate him, but you just, he's very brash. You're like,
he's hard to warm to. And
then, like, it's like, oh, because he doesn't want anybody to be able to be close to him.
Yeah. Ow.
And it like literally it goes back to that thing everyone always says of like, everyone's fighting a battle that you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, he has gone through so much, and it's like, I would probably act similarly. Like, I would like to think that I would stay kind and open to the world, but I can't blame him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it's like, also in a way, he somewhat finds that toward the end. I think it's, and I mean, we're jumping all over. I really kind of was like, let's start at the beginning, and I was like, that's out the window.
There's no way.
But he really does find that again towards the end,
Yeah.
with Katniss and Peeta, and it's like, I love that Katniss is just such a, I mean, not just Katniss and Peeta, but like, I love that they're both people who kind of like help him return to feeling able to really feel connected to people again. Especially knowing now all the parallels between particularly Katniss and Haymitch. I would also say Peeta and Haymitch have a lot of parallels too.
Yeah.
And so
very much wanting to protect the ones
they
love.
It's heartbreaking. It really hurts my feelings.
Well, I have a ton of notes too, you guys, but mine are never as organized as Danielle's. But I sparkled a few things that I wanted to make sure I talked about. And this is towards the beginning. How do you say this girl's name? Drusilla?
Yeah, that's how I was pronouncing it.
Okay. Something that I found so disturbing is, and it's especially comes from her, is the way that she always refers to the tributes, especially the 12s, as animals in some type of way.
Oh,
pigs, piglets, beasts. I remember when, I don't know what year it was, but I remember in high school we were learning about genocide and like the kind of the steps leading up to a genocide. And one of the things I've just always remembered this is like referring to the people that you're trying to oppress as something below human. And it's usually like animals or like roaches or like something like that, something barbaric and like below human. And that just always stuck with me. And right away we're seeing like people in the Capitol referring to the tributes as animals and treating them like animals. And like she I think when they were like getting them prepped, she was like, trim his claws, and like every body part, she was referring to it like as an animal body part. And it was very sickening to read.
Yes.
And I think it really shows like just the complete difference in the worlds that these people live in, even though they're all in the same country. And it just was so disturbing to me. And I feel like when we read The Hunger Games, Effie is just very, she has drank the Capitol's Kool-Aid in a lot of ways, but she is very kind, and she does really try to make Katniss and Peeta's last few days before the games like as dignified, I feel like, as possible. And so it was a very stark contrast to read this one and see like 25 years or whatever, or 50 years previously, or whatever.
It's 25. Yeah,
no, okay, okay. I was
you're
like,
right.
what?
No, the numbers get confusing. I get it. Yeah, it's 25.
I was like, there's no way
Haymitch is 75 years old.
But 25 years previously, like, just how low the Capitol people viewed them. And I think there are still Capitol people up through Katniss's Hunger Games that still view them that way. But I don't know, that was very like, and that's like in the first 50 pages, and it was like very
bad.
Very telling.
Yeah, you know what, I'm glad you said that, because I will be honest, of course I clocked it, like just the complete dehumanization of these children. It's literally insane, and I don't think it's done. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, so like subtlety has gone out the window low key in a way that like, like the dehumanization of these people is so crazy in the Capitol. And I know that we've gotten that in the Hunger Games, but it was always done in the way of like, I'm thinking about Katniss getting groomed for the first time, and she just feels like everyone's just poking and prodding at her. And like, just the idea of the Hunger Games is obviously incredibly like, you feel like you are not made to be a person. And so when I was reading this, I was like, this feels so aggressive, and I didn't like it. But now that you say that, I'm like, that is actually a really interesting point, that to show kind of like just the difference of one person is huge. Like just the fact that Effie's presence, like especially in this book too, the second she comes in, you're like, oh, like she's like a bit different just because she actually like possesses kindness. She just doesn't have the context that we need her to have in order to kind of, completely deprogram herself from what she's been taught her entire life. It's just really interesting kind of the way that this book goes into the fact that these kids are basically meant to be treated as cattle. And like truly paraded around. Well,
and I think that it also, so much of this stuff is relevant to our society, and I think it kind of could be a parallel to like a lot of racism. And like, we learn about how prevalent racism was before the civil rights movements and blah blah blah. And it's like, back then you were almost basically allowed to be racist. And it's like, I feel like that is like how Drusilla is. It's like she's allowed to talk
Laura's
to them
putting
like that.
Scare quotes.
Yes.
by the
oh
way,
my
right?
gosh. Yes. I forgot not everyone can see us. Yeah, I am not condoning anyone's behavior
No.
of the past. The culture of the time is nobody was countering people in our world and in the Hunger Games world, whereas it's like when we get to like Katniss's Hunger Games, the capital people still think that the districts are below them, but they're not. So like you said, they're more subtle about it, and it's like that's how some people in our world are too. People aren't necessarily outright saying such horrible things, but they're still acting in ways and doing things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I that was just very like...
That's really true. Yeah. Yeah. It's just so interesting because especially when the capital people are all just like living in their bubble of, well, we have the upper hand and we always have and we always will almost. And it's like, obviously the Hunger Games act as a way to kind of keep that system in place. Mm-hmm. You know, Suzanne Collins knew when she was writing this book of like, and imagine though you're doing this to a 12-year-old. Imagine though you're doing this to a 17-year-old kid on his birthday or whatever, you know? It's just like, oh, it's so hard to read. And also it's like, you know, and I did make that comment about the lack of subtlety, I think, in this book. I will say sometimes maybe that's needed when you're in trying times, especially when you're on an internet where like people are reading the Hunger Games and still not getting it. Like they're still not getting it. And so, you know what? I'm okay with Suzanne being like, hey, just so you guys know, snow is bad. The capital people are horrendous. And that's fine with me, especially for a YA book. I also think it's really important to also note that this is YA. And we're talking to like younger audiences, and I'm okay with things being heavy-handed in that regard. But also it's like it never pulled me out of the story. Like, I'm not saying it was bad. I don't know. I'm hoping people aren't thinking I'm like
You're saying like you thought like the style of the writing was a little bit,
it was just different in this one
in
compared
your face
to the other
more.
ones. Yes. And I don't think it's bad, actually. I think it maybe was needed for this book. And so I'm okay with it.
I feel like for me it was like, I think I would have picked up on it even if it was more subtle, but I think the way it was thrown in my face
was more
made me so repulsed by Drusilla and the other capital people, and also made me, I don't know, just made my emotions stronger. And I think that the characters that are more subtle about it are like, and I can't remember everyone's names, but like basically like the college kids, you know, or like the 18-year-olds that are like on the prep team kind of, and they're like worried about their grades. Like, to me, that's where like, they were a little more subtle. They're like, oh my gosh, my grade and la la la. Meanwhile, like their peers, like their age group of peers are about to go be literally slaughtered. And like they're so out of touch, and they didn't really say anything necessarily directly demeaning towards like Haymitch and Maisley and all them, but they still were being,
100%. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I think too, it's like then you get to see how amazing it feels when you find those little lighthouses. I'm thinking like Cinna's such an impactful character, even especially now seeing just how awful it's been in the past. And I mean, like, again, like you can get this from any Hunger Games, like context, like of course Capital sucks. Everyone in the Capital sucks. But like, you know, just like the idea of like seeing like past people who are involved in District 12 and what like Haymitch had to go through, and then you're just like, thank God Katniss had like Cinna, and thank God Katniss had Haymitch, and thank God we had Plutarch at like what he was able to do in Catching Fire compared to here. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, okay, so like what were your thoughts? Because this book has a lot of not like just a lot of recurring characters that we've already met. what were your thoughts on all of our besties coming back? Like, I'm thinking, let's see, we got Plutarch coming back, we got Effie coming back, we got Mags, Wyrus, Beatty coming back. I think that's everybody for that I can remember right now.
Mostly like the big names.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked it. I think that I really liked seeing Effie.
I know,
as a young woman.
So exciting.
it really like showed, you know, she's always been someone that others want to count on or look up to. Beatty,
Beatty broke my heart.
That was probably the most devastating. Was learning
his
past and his present in this book with his son. I just like was thinking about him. Mostly I'm thinking about him like in the movies of Catching Fire or whatever, and the way he's a little bit stoic and very like, well, if you just do the wire and you know what I'm saying? It's like he's
kind of hardened by the world.
Yeah, like a little bit detached from things, and it's like, oh, no wonder.
Yeah. He was my favorite inclusion, I think, of past characters. I was so excited to see him come up on the page. I was like, oh my god, Beatty. And then I was like, whoa, like he if you can't remember, by the way, basically Beatty's point in this book is his son gets reaped, and so he's basically being punished, and so his punishment is like to basically, because he has to be a mentor since he won in the past, is to kind of like follow his son up until the days of the Hunger Games. And I'm like, that is such a insane way to bring back a character in a way that's like impactful, truly like pointing out a new devious way that Snow operates as a dictator. And also adding so much context to his character. I loved it, and I loved what he was able to do for Haymitch. The fact that the seeds were planted for blowing up the arena far beyond Katniss. I'm like, that just makes Catching Fire so much more like, oh my god, it hits so hard. Because
when they make their plan in Catching Fire, it's like, oh, Beatty's been on this mission for 25 years.
Yes, Beatty and Plutarch and Haymitch, like literally all three of them. Whoa. And Wyrus. Sorry, I'm just thinking about it.
And what was I gonna say? Oh, I saw like a clip edit thing on TikTok, and it was Haymitch asking Katniss like, who do you want for your allies? And she says Mags, Wyrus, and Beatty, and it's like she doesn't even know the breadth of the history that Haymitch had with him, and it just like, oh my gosh, it's like they were something greater was at work, you know what I mean? Like to bring the culmination of everything together. It's just crazy.
I love it. And also it's just for Suzanne Collins to be working just in like hyperspeed the way that she was, the little tiny moments that we get of like Haymitch showing kindness and softness for all three of those people, and then it's like in this book we're giving context because like Mags and Wyrus were his mentors, and Beatty, you know, he has that connection with Beatty. I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful.
Okay, one thing that I was thinking about, this was on page 86. I don't know what happened on page 86, but I wrote panopticon ... realizing Katniss got past this with the fence. There's something that I think Haymitch is talking about, like he never goes into the woods or something because there's something, I don't know, something on page 86 he's talking about. He never does that because he thinks someone's watching him, or he could get like in trouble for it, even though he's like, they might not catch me, but they might. And have you ever heard of like the panopticon? Do you know what that is?
And I don't think I have.
It's like I'm not gonna, okay, I'll try to explain it quickly, but it's like a jail type of like thought experiment type thing where it's like it's in the round, and so it's like the someone could be watching you at any point. Basically it's a people talk about things being a panopticon, where it's like you could be being watched at any moment, but you might not be, but you could be. So it's like you are scared out of doing things because of the threat of someone seeing you. And so it's like, I was thinking like Katniss got past that because she goes under the fence and goes and hunts and stuff, but it's like whatever context, whatever Haymitch was doing on that page, I don't know, it's like he was like, oh, I don't want to do that because I could be caught. And like I wrote that down, and it's a little bit early in the book, I mean like in the 80s. And then I was realizing like throughout so much of the book, like there's so many things. Even Plutarch asks his I can't.
Girl, I've said worse.
Plutarch asks Haymitch, like, but why do you get reaped? But why do you let, like, you know? And it's like, Haymitch is like, what do you mean? Like, what choice do I have? Like, we have to do these things. What I'm saying is not making sense. It's like, it's like there's so many times where the characters do things because of the threat of being caught, or the threat of what will happen if they don't do what they've been told to do.
Yeah.
Even though the peacekeepers might not be there and there might be no repercussions, but it's like, for example, at the end, Haymitch is like, I'm not gonna let anybody be close to me. He stops being friends with Burdock and the other guy and Hattie and the this and that. He pushes them all away because the Capitol has taken, President Snow has taken everyone away from him, and now he feels the threat of always being watched, even if he's not. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, 100%. And I also think, you know, this kind of only partially goes with what you're saying, but it makes me so upset the way Haymitch's Hunger Games was presented to the world. In a way, I think he was very much somebody who was always trying to do the right thing. You know, he was always like upstanding and like somewhat righteous about a lot of his choices. He wanted to protect the people he loves. He wanted to protect the newcomers. He wanted to do whatever. And then the fact that at the end of it, you see his Hunger Games being so heavily edited to the fact that like every single sacrifice he made, everything that he was doing for the greater good, completely wiped of context. I think it's so devastating to know, especially because even with Lucy Gray and Katniss, for brief moments, I'm thinking mostly of Lucy Gray because obviously they erased everything, but like for brief moments in like their time, they are allowed to kind of show their true colors, and Haymitch never gets that. I don't know. I don't know how much that relates to your panopticon.
No, but that's fine.
But like, I'm just thinking about like, like the fear of being watched, and then Haymitch trying to do the right thing, knowing that truly he's always going to be forever perceived as somebody who isn't who he was,
like abandoned. Yeah,
and it's just like, I think that's only like a small part of just like the trauma and like horrors he was he went through in this book. But to me that really just struck me because it was so liberating to almost see Katniss and Lucy Gray be these like figures of like, I actually want to take down something huge and I want to like make a difference, and like they were always able to kind of like do things somewhat with like their head held high, and Haymitch, we can see behind the scenes, was doing that, but no one else gets to see that. Like
I'm thinking about Katniss putting like the flowers or like singing to Rue and stuff, and it's like Haymitch did things that were similar to that, but it was all taken away, and it made me think about like how many things throughout all these years have been edited. Then I was thinking like the people in the Capitol that are watching these, and it's this big thing and it's exciting, and it's like, but it's not even real, really. It's
propaganda,
you know? And so it's like,
truly,
you know, it's kind of like we always talk about like reality TV, like it's not really reality. It's scripted to a point. It's edited to be entertaining, and it's like that's exactly what they're doing with the Hunger Games. So it's like, but the Capitol is so, like, the regular citizens, not the people that are involved with the games, have to be so either out of touch and don't know that that's happening, and they just eat it up, and it's like, woo, this is so fun to watch. Or they're aware, the same way we're aware about reality TV not being like legit reality, but it's like we still watch it and it's still entertaining. You know, they might be aware, but it's just like, oh, that's just like part of what it is. And you know,
well, I think that's like the whole point of just the Capitol versus the districts, and the fact that the Capitol, I believe, fully does engage with the Hunger Games, thinking like, yeah, and this is right, this is what we should be seeing, because again, they're always going to have the upper hand, they're always going to be in the position of power, whereas the districts, knowing that you cannot trust the Capitol, they watch these games with a grain of salt, and they know,
that's so true. Yeah,
like they know that this is not fair,
right,
at all. And so it's heartbreaking to see it happen to a character you love so much, I think, because we never got to look too much into that with Peeta and Katniss. And of course, we get Lucy Gray's backstory, and just knowing she was erased from history.
Right.
Completely upsetting.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but then seeing Haymitch being edited and then paraded around as this victor, I think has its own sting to it. But.
Yeah. The pacing, so I wrote on page 212, I wrote, the pacing here has changed and it's very effective, including the exclamation mark. So this is when the games have started.
Pacing in the games is crazy.
Yeah, and I want to just broaden that to like the whole book. I feel like it's like if most of the book was like at an even level, then like the games are a little bit faster, like especially right when it starts. He's very like, oh, well, no, I can't go there. Oh, of course. Oh, I should have known that. He's like saying exclamations to himself in his head. Yeah. And I feel like it was like the first time we had seen exclamation marks, which it maybe wasn't, but it was like the first time I was noticing them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, because he's in like in a heightened adrenaline state. And then when we get to like after he gets, mostly just after the whole Hunger Games is ended, but also especially when he gets back to 12, it almost was like dragging on and like a little bit hard to read for me, because the pacing was like, it's not that it was like so slow, but it was just like like dragging, you know, because he's dragging. And I feel like her, like Suzanne Collins' pacing choices were really good, because they didn't seem like, okay, now we're shifting to a different act, so time to like switch up the writing. You know, it wasn't like goofy or cheesy, but it was very like real, and it made me I feel like it made me more connected to Haymitch himself, because I was like experiencing his thoughts and actions like in the tempo that he was experiencing them.
Yeah, you know? 100%. That's so true. Because I also noted that I was like, wow, he's having a lot of really interesting like internal thoughts that we haven't really seen so much before.
Right.
That's so true. Like he is in such a heightened state of just like adrenaline, hysteria, whatever. I think the pacing in the Hunger Games was so interesting, specifically because we were meeting people and then a page later they were dead. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, it wasn't until we met really up with Maisley that like it started to slow down just a bit, and we got like more moments with them. And at first I was like, whoa, I kind of want, hang on, like we just got these people together and now all of a sudden they're gone. But it makes so much sense why she did it that way, because that's just like, you're in the Hunger Games for like a week. And like, and when you're also like, you're hungry, you're tired, you're scared, you're like, everything is jarring and confusing. And so every death was supposed to feel so fast and, like I just said, jarring, because to Haymitch, that's how it felt. And he's confused. It makes so much sense that for a moment, like you're looking at somebody and then a moment later they're lying on the ground because somebody threw something at them. Like, that's just how the Hunger Games are. It's insane.
I feel like there were so many tributes. I couldn't keep track of them. But I'm like, but I shouldn't be able to keep track of them because Haymitch can't keep track of them. Like, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, with Katniss's Hunger Games, I feel like there was like the ones that like quickly died off, but then there was like the ones that she interacted with a lot, and then the ones that we kind of knew, like, you know, like there was like the fox face girl, and it's like, we don't really know much about her, but you know who she is.
Yeah, like anybody who lasts past that first day, we know about. Like we know about Trench, we know about Rue, we know about the careers. Yes. Right.
But I feel like in this book, it was like there was definitely like the main group and then a few standouts, and then there were so many that it was just like,
you couldn't
there goes track. Another kid. And I felt like a bad reader because I was like, oh, I can't remember all these people. But it's like, but Haymitch can't remember them, and that's probably also why it felt so like quick, like there they go, because Haymitch didn't have any sort of real attachment or interaction to them, so they're dead and they're gone, and it obviously affected him to some extent, but it wasn't like affecting him, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think too, another like minorly devastating moment in regard to that is just when Maisley and Haymitch meet up and they're witnessing the first night with, you know, the projection of all the people who had died throughout the day, and he tells her, you keep track of names, I'll keep track of numbers. And then she says something about how it's easy when you just can remember colors. And it's like, even to them in the games, they have to do this kind of mental shift where in order to survive and in order to just like, because you're in such an insane situation, in a way you have to kind of dehumanize the other people, and it just like kind of like goes to show just how I think it's so interesting, all the little ways that it goes to show how actually impactful these games are for like what the Capitol is trying to do to the districts. It hurts. I was also thinking, every time they get into an alliance in the Hunger Games, of course the entire time I'm just like, and this isn't going to end well. Like, I can't believe people make alliances because, oh my God, how are you going to do this?
Huge alliance.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, I think too, it's so interesting thinking about how in the games, you have to detach yourself from what's going to happen a day from now as much as you can.
That's so true.
Because like, they're like, specifically Haymitch and Maisley, I was just thinking about them, you know, they were calling each other like brother and sister. And
which was... It was so found family for you.
Right. I love them so much.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like they were working so much in tandem together, and the entire time I was like, what is going to happen when you guys are getting down to the last 4 people? Like what is the plan here? And like they just could not think about what the plan was going to be outside of like Haymitch hoping that he could somehow take down the arena, and like Maisley just wanting to survive to the end. It's so crazy, like what you have to do in that arena. It's so scary. I couldn't imagine ever.
Right. Yeah. It's almost, you know, similar to how it felt seeing like Katniss and Peeta team up, you know, like, you know, you kind of rooting for both of them. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about Maisley.
I love her. Oh my God, I love her.
I texted Dan and I was like, I need a universe where Maisley and Joanna can meet in Kiki.
Maisley and okay, Maisley is for the Joanna girls, and as a Joanna girl, I was so happy to have her here.
I loved her. Yeah,
one of my favorite quotes, and it's so minor, but it's like when like, because obviously Drusilla and her were having so much beef. But there was one point when like I think she was like helping them all practice their interviews before Caesar Flickerman, but there's a moment when she is like being particularly mean to Lulu because she just does not know she does not have the emotional capacity to understand and read people, that this is not Luella. But anyway, and then there's this moment where like really no one's on Drusilla's side, and Haymitch says something about how like all that was left was like standing was like Maisley who hits back. That's like her summarized in just a sentence, like Maisley who hits back. I love her so much.
That's her titular line.
Yes, I just love her. And so you say something about her. Like, what did you love about her?
I also liked that she was different than what Haymitch thought she was going to be. Because she's kind of like the stuck up, like, you know, the rich girl of 12, which is, which is like, it's such an interesting place to be, because she was like kind of hot stuff in 12, but compared to the Capitol, she's just as low as anybody. And I liked that she was still, because Haymitch talks about her being like the mean girl of District 12. I liked that she was still the mean girl, but she wasn't, but she was a mean girl with a cause, or like for a cause, you know? I feel like she accepted her fate of like, I'm not getting out of this situation alive, and so I'm gonna let the Capitol people know what I think about them, and that they're killing us, they're hurting us, they're ruining us. And she was like, and so I'm not going to be quiet about it. And I just liked that. She kind of reminds me a little bit of Nina from Six of Crows.
Oh my God, I so see that.
I love her.
I think in a lot of ways she kind of reminds me of that one really famous PETA quote where he says before he goes into the games, when I die, I want to still be me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's Maisley to a T. And also, can I just like read the most heartbreaking paragraph from Maisley's? Because like, I just love her and Haymitch's relationship. I think it's so fascinating the way it developed. And so like, after she dies, which by the way was the hardest I cried in this book. I literally texted B a photo. If you guys follow her Instagram, you saw the photo. But I was like sobbing. I had to take a break. And I was like, I need to walk around my room. It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm sobbing over Maisley.
Yeah.
But when she dies, Haymitch says, "Goodbye, Maisley Donner, who I loathed, then grudgingly respected, then loved, not as a sweetheart or even a friend, a sister," I'd said. "But what is that exactly? I think about our journey, everything from sniping with her in those early days after the reaping to battling those pink birds. I guess that's my answer. A sister is someone you fight with and fight for tooth and nail." And I just think, I'm going to cry.
I write down quotes that I want to like write down later. I write down page numbers for quotes. That's the only thing I wrote. It's just quotes, page 308.
She's so like just a beautiful character. And I think, sorry, I actually might cry. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. We both have sisters, so
it's so true. I just think it's so beautiful to see. We're in the year 2025, so it's not like this is so uncommon to see, but it's so refreshing every time I get to witness it. Just writing these young female characters with so much care and depth, and they're not meant to be likable. They're meant to feel relatable, and they're meant to feel important to the cause or important to the story in whatever way. And it's like Maisley, from the first second she walked on the page, was there to have an impact.
Yeah.
And the idea that she was taken down in a way where she never stood a chance is so heartbreaking to me. Yeah. Because it's just like, it was just like the game makers she was gonna die no matter what. And it wasn't by like the hand of like somebody else. There wasn't anything that Haymitch could do to protect her. It's really heartbreaking. And I think every death in this particular story is so much more gruesome than anything we've ever witnessed in the Hunger Games. I really can't believe like the stakes were upped that much. And I'm really scared to see what we're gonna do when this comes out in the theater. I don't know if I want to see some of this stuff.
No. Along with that, I wrote like, I said like, this is what I wrote. No, I get it. They're punishing Haymitch. They're keeping him alive to use him to hurt him by ripping apart his friends. Like, I think there were other reasons, like Ampert, for example.
Yeah.
It wasn't just to hurt Haymitch. Obviously, it was to hurt Beatty as well. But it got to a point where it was like, this feels like the game makers are targeting the people right in front of Haymitch to, again, further break him down. And it's just like, again, it goes back to like realizing that like, while there is so much chance in these games, it's all rigged, you know? And it's just like, that is like so frustrating as a reader or a whatever you want to call it, viewer to the series. Like, their life is already so unfair, and then to like make their deaths like to target them specifically, like okay, it's not better necessarily to die by the hand of just a fellow tribute, but at least that was the point of, in quotes, of what they were doing. But to have the game makers like get to just like pick off which ones they want to eliminate, it's just like,
it's really driving the
what
point
are
home.
we doing?
Yeah, that this is so manufactured and unfair and despicable. It's just awful. There's a line in like the very beginning of this book where somebody says, none of us had any choices, and I feel like that's just like such a simple thesis statement of the entire series. It's just like, consistently you have to remember, no one here gets to choose anything, and no one here gets to make it out as a winner,
right?
You know, there's no winners, as Haymitch says in past. I think I don't know if this is a movie quote or a book quote, but he says there are no winners, there are just survivors. And that's genuinely just the whole thing.
And it's interesting, like, because I feel like Haymitch, while he did want to survive to be with his family and be with Lenore Dove and stuff, like, I feel like he wasn't going for that victor spot. He wanted to, I feel like he also kind of just accepted that was the end of his time with his family, and he was on board though with like the blowing up the brain of the arena plan, and he wanted to be a part of that, but he wasn't really necessarily trying to win. And then like he did win, and it's like, I feel like for him it just ended up being worse than dying, because it's not even, I feel like it's not even that it's not about him not having Lenore and not having his family. It's that they were murdered on purpose because of him. Like, that it's just literally awful. It's just literally awful.
I wrote down that Haymitch is somebody who, well, there's a quote that he said earlier where he was referring to his death, and he said, oh my god, why can't I find it? Hang on. Oh, he wants to make his death as easy as possible for the people he loves. And that's just who he is throughout the whole entire games. Like, he's consistently, I feel like, preparing for the future that everyone else is going to lead without him. But he never got to prepare himself for the future he would have to lead without everyone he loves. And it hurts so bad. Thinking too, especially I'm thinking about Lucy Gray always had a defiance to her, so I don't think she particularly went into the arena thinking, I'm gonna make it out of this alive, but I think she always had that hope and that like drivenness, I guess drive, sorry, I just said an incorrect word. Anyway, she always had the hope and the drive that like she's gonna fight to hopefully, you know, make it out. And then Katniss goes into Hunger Games like, I have to win this, I have to come out alive. And Haymitch is so, I know, and Haymitch is so different, because he goes in and he feels like he definitely is not going to make, especially with like, because he starts to find the Capitol before he even gets to the games. So he's walking through the whole entire games being like, they can kill me at any moment, I'm probably a goner, none of this matters, whatever. And it's just such a different type of emotion you feel as you're reading this, and you know you're gonna survive and it's gonna be horrible, like you're not gonna get out of this unscathed, but it's just gonna be a completely different way that you think it's going to be. Because
you're right, he's like, you know, he's like, oh, President Snow, I'm sure already has like, you know, my death planned out and it's gonna be spectacular, like, to the viewers. But it's like, yeah, no, Snow probably did have your future planned out, and it was going to be spectacular to him to know that he's instilling the fear and the control, and it's he's just like,
he's so devious as a villain, because I think he, not only is he just like really evil, but he's so cunning and he reads people so well, and so him, like, for example, him knowing that, like, just killing Beetee wouldn't be enough of a punishment, he is going to make his son be a tribute in the Hunger Games and have me follow him up to his final days, knowing that, like, he was the one who put him there. He knows so well what is going to actually hurt these people the most. And Haymitch probably, you know, he obviously didn't understand the whole scope of, like, what Snow could do. But Snow probably read from the beginning, hey, this guy thinks I'm going to kill him. No.
Yeah.
I know, like, that's too easy. I know exactly what's going to hurt him the most.
And it's like Haymitch, you know, all the people that were close to him, I kind of said this before, but were taken away from him. Like, his family and Lenore were purposely murdered. And not only that, but I feel like everyone leading up to the games and in the games also, like Luella, and then in the games Lulu, and Ampert and Maisley, like, he was with all of those people, and it kind of on his watch, in quotes, like, you know, they die. And I just feel like it's just been like one thing after another. I mean, I feel like if I was in his situation too, I would start to think, like, it's me and I'm the problem, and I can't let anybody get close to me, because every time he does, they're taken away either by intentional killing or, like, negligence or whatever. Like, it just makes me understand his 74th Hunger Games era character so much more than just like, oh, I won, which, like, again, I don't want to, like, diminish his character, but I feel like when you first read about him in the original trilogy, it's just like, oh, he won the Hunger Games and his life was miserable, so he drank his life away. But it's like, it's more than just like, oh, he was just miserable, so he just abused alcohol. It's like, no, like, he had good reason to feel like,
hey, this is so sad.
Like, his life. It's just like, it's just so horrible. It's just literally horrible.
I think there's something to in the way that Haymitch never let anybody die alone. This might make me cry, actually, on what I'm going to talk about. Every single person that he witnesses who dies in the Hunger Games, or even before that with Luella, he lays them to rest and makes sure that they have somebody there. And it's something he consistently does. And I feel like at the end, what's crazy, Suzanne Collins, you end this in the most brutal way you could. Where, like, Haymitch never moves on. He never gets over it. The grief follows him day in and day out. The fact that he ends this book by saying, I don't think I'm going to be here for much longer because I've damaged my liver to the point of I'm going to die soon from drinking. The one mercy I think Suzanne Collins really gave him was the fact that he got to have Peeta and Katniss by his side, and so he's not going to die alone. Where, like, for the past 25 years, I think he very much thought that was going to be the case. And so it's truly, like, the whole epilogue is Suzanne Collins being like, hey, by the way, Haymitch never really gets better and finds happiness, but he finds solace enough where, like, you can be comforted that he's not going to die by himself.
Something that I realized, this is kind of towards the end of the book, I wrote this down on page 311, so whatever happens on that page. I wrote, these flashback memories serve the book in that we get more story and context. Like, you know, they serve the narrative style, but it also shows Haymitch is thinking these are his last days of his life. So, like, he's having his, you know, his end of life flashbacks and reminiscing. I just thought that was a very smart writing style choice, because we don't really get a lot of pre-Hunger Games context for Haymitch, because, I mean, the book starts on his birthday on the Reaping, and so, but, you know, we're immediately introduced to all these characters that he has a history and a backstory with, and we find out about it as he progresses through his games and stuff, when he has flashbacks, that's kind of how we learn about like, oh, like, what was his relationship with Maisley? What was his relationship with Wyatt? What's his relationship with Hattie doing the liquor and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but then I was also thinking, like, these are what he thinks are his last memories. So he's like, oh, and this was like that memory I have with that person, you know, just kind of like a bittersweet, like remembering, but you're remembering because it's your last time to remember, or so he thought, you know. I don't know, I just liked that writing style choice.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't think I even thought about that.
One thing that I also wanted to bring up, if that's okay, unless you had just found something.
You go.
This is also right towards the end, page 338. Haymitch and Effie are talking, and Effie says, like, no, Haymitch, like, I knew you had a good character basically from that time that I dropped my makeup bag. And Haymitch, like, helps her pick it up, you know?
Yeah.
And she's, like, kind of surprised by that. And she's like, I knew who you were from that day. Like, basically someone worth backing and supporting and you know, a good person. But then, like, her next line is like, but you know these games are for the greater good. That was like the titular line, the titular scene of who Effie is.
100%.
Because she is like, she sees that Haymitch is just as human as she is, which cannot be said about all the Capitol. And she's like, oh, I understand your situation is so horrible, but the games are for the good of everybody. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, Effie, you are so close, you know?
I know.
That was really, I thought that was a very powerful scene.
She's one of the most, I think, important characters, actually, in this whole series.
Right.
There is something about people who believe they're doing the right thing, and they're showing compassion, and they have all the tools for, like, being on the right side, but they're not doing the work to, like, deconstruct exactly all of the bad they've been taught their whole life, you know? They're not really pushing themselves far enough to really understand, I don't know, just like the actual awfulness of the world that they're living in. And again, it's just so much easier to be like that when you live in a bubble and, like, everyone around you is thriving, and, like, it's so much better to thrive than to be someone trying to bring down that institution. But, like, it's so fascinating to see Effie and Haymitch and their relationship, and the fact that Effie's going to continue for 25 more years on this belief system that the games are actually beneficial for the state of the world.
Right.
And it's just like, no, like you're escorting these poor children to their death every year.
Yeah.
And just because you put on a chipper attitude isn't going to make anything better.
No, literally.
It also it brings so much context too to the fact that, like, Haymitch is still, they have to work together over the next 25 years.
That's so true. Yeah.
Especially after a line kind of towards the end where Haymitch tells Plutarch that he doesn't think he's going to ever trust anybody from the Capitol again. But it's like, obviously he kind of has this relationship with Effie.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. And I really love her as a character because I think she's fascinating. Because you want to root for her, but you're like, girl, just open your eyes a little bit more.
True. Okay, something else was Haymitch dropping the chocolate down to Silka.
Ooh, I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very interesting scene, and I think it shows again Haymitch having this good heart, and he wants, even though she was a career, he wants all of the tributes to be playing for the same team, which is against the Capitol as opposed to against each other. You know, but then it's like, in the end, she was ready to basically chop his head off, like, literally.
Yes.
And I thought it was really interesting that he feels infuriated when he sees, like, kind of the chocolate smeared on her mouth, and he's like, wow, like, you know, I thought we were kind of like
Ugh.
maybe having some type of bond, but in the end she was ready to just swing that axe or whatever.
In Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, do you remember that character? She's got the short hair. She's kind of like really the leader of the pack in the Hunger Games. I remember there's a scene where she's about to like she's trying to kill Lucy Gray, and then the snakes come down and she realizes that the game is rigged and that she's not making out of it. And she has this whole moment where she kind of breaks down and she's like, it wasn't fair. Like she kind of did everything right in the way that like the games are supposed to go, where like she fought to stay alive and survive the games. And of course to us, she was the villain, but in her head, she just wanted to survive.
Right.
And now she's realizing that nothing's fair.
Right.
I think like that's kind of what Silka's journey reminded me of, because we get that one brief glint of her being just as scared and sad as Haymitch and Welly. And Haymitch, you know, finds it in himself to kind of try to do a peace offering with her, like pass her an olive branch with the chocolates. And of course it never is going to play out in the way he wants to, because she's here to win and survive. Like, she's a career, so she has not accepted her fate of death so much, I would say, as Haymitch has. In the face of survival, she had no problem killing Welly. The levels of kind of what every single person goes through in this game. And it's also different, but at the end of the day, they're all like the same scared children trying to survive.
Yeah, that makes me think of the first, is it Panache? I never know how to like say their names until I say them out loud. You know, is he the one who in the interview they like basically make him sound like a dumb like meathead basically? And it's like he did what they so often find honorable, like train for the Hunger Games. I can't remember if he volunteered, but I know a lot of the careers like they volunteer, and it's like that is like what the Capitol kind of eats up, like, oh, these strong kids that like they want to be a part of like the Hunger Games, like that's so admirable. And then you get a kid who actually did that and they basically make fun of him for it. And it's like, while I was not on his side at all, I did kind of feel for him, like not having control over how Caesar was making him be perceived by the whole audience. And it's like, I feel like they say, like, when it's Katniss and Peeta's, I feel like Haymitch is saying, like, Caesar Flickerman can help you or hurt you, you know, like,
right,
you know, and it's just so true. Like, the way that Flickerman, like, interviewed him could have made everyone get on his side, but instead they kind of made a joke out of him. And I'm sure, again, it's just another example of them being dehumanized and, like, they're just like a plaything for the Capitol to like have fun, and they're not thinking about A, that this kid is probably going to die in the next week, and also B, like his feelings are getting hurt, you know. And it's not like, again, it's like, it's not that I was on his side, but in a way it's like, you know, you feel for every single one of those tributes, because it's unfair, no matter how bad of a guy, in quotes, like one of the careers is, it's like they're still a kid having to fight to the death. Like, that's just unacceptable for, you know.
I know, it's like, even when you're reading, this is, Suzanne Collins is so smart, but like, even when you're reading, because you're rooting for the quote unquote good guys, and so even then you're turning people who are also victims of their circumstances into villains, because you want the people that you follow and love to survive, but everyone's a victim, and everyone's a kid, and it's so heartbreaking. Like, you constantly have to check yourself while you're reading this, like, okay, hey, this is a child, by the way, who's also been put in the same position as Haymitch, right? And I mean, even though he's acting with a little less grace, maybe, that's just because that's what he was trained to do, and that's how he's getting through this situation that is literally unimaginable. And it's just how you get through a war, you know what I mean? It's awful. It's just really awful.
I mean, yeah, like my notes towards the end, page 357, I just wrote the grief. Page 365, I just wrote this is brutal. Like,
horrible.
I just like, yeah. I feel like this one, it's like there's a ton of death in all of the Hunger Games books, but this one almost felt more graphic.
100%. Yeah. I kind of knew that because the only thing that I remembered from Haymitch's games that we got context for in the original trilogy was that Haymitch won the Hunger Games with his intestines hanging out. And I was like,
oh gosh, yeah.
Hey, that's actually crazy. And so I was like, this is going to be probably brutal. And also knowing it's a quarter quell.
Yeah.
But I was not expecting like how graphic the deaths were. Like I cried twice in this book. I thought I was going to cry more, honestly, but I've cried more thinking back on it than I actually did when I was reading. I think I was just so in it.
Yeah.
But I cried with Maisley, of course, because that was like a really emotional death. And I cried for Ampert because that was just a horrible way to go.
Yeah, that was
really
like,
bad.
Definitely the most disturbing part
100%
to have to read.
And then the fact that I think it's also so well written in the way that we don't see Beatty's grief, but we feel it on the page.
Yeah.
In the way that like Haymitch feels it, you know, immediately he thinks about Beatty, and you're just like, oh my god. And then the context that we know of Beatty when we meet him in Catching Fire, it all comes so full circle.
Oh, I got chills again. Yeah,
it's so well done. I was like crying for Ampert, and then I was crying for Beatty.
Yeah, something I was thinking about is like obviously all the books that we've read in the series, like they revolve around a Hunger Games. Like if someone in my family went into the Hunger Games and died, it would take me at least a year to get over that grief, and then by the time that comes up, it's time for another one. And I was just thinking about like the people in the districts, like their lives revolve around these Hunger Games, and it's like they don't get to step away from it. Like the Capitol, it's just a spectator thing for a week, and then like their lives move on and they do their other normal stuff, but it's not like their whole life is revolving around who's gonna get reaped. Is it gonna be my brother? Is it gonna be my sister? Is it gonna be me? Should we take out more Tesserae? Is it worth that? You know, it's just like they just are never getting a break, I think, even when it's, you know, 6 months past the Hunger Games. I think it's still, you know, permeating every aspect of their lives. Yeah.
It's like even just the idea of like, I think about the fact that when Haymitch leaves the Hunger Games, he finds out that Beatty has a wife at home who's pregnant. It's so crazy to me to even think about how these people, like how much they have to worry about the planning of their lives.
Yeah.
Like the idea, I'm going to bring a kid into this world, and just for 6 whole years of their lives, I have to be so fearful that I'm basically birthing them so that way they could die horrifically for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
It's so disturbing and heartbreaking, and I mean there's a lot of similarities you could point to maybe to like real life circumstances. A lot of people, you know, how they have to plan their lives out like that, where a lot of people born into privilege don't have to think about certain things. It's just the idea of bringing kids into the world in a time of war and conflict. What's crazy is it's never even talked about on the page, but it's just something always looming in the background. Also, the crazy part is it's not technically war. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it's post-war and pre-war. Yeah, and it's like Haymitch kind of that beginning scene kind of touches on that, of like Haymitch is like, well, this is just our lives now. Like this is what we, you know. But Lenore's like, but do you think it always has to be like that though? Like there was a time before the Hunger Games. Maybe there could be a time after. But it's like most of the people don't have the privilege of time and capacity to consider how could there be a time after the Hunger Games. We don't have time to worry about that. We just have to get through our day to day. Yeah. You know? Ugh. I think one of those devastating things, and I know we've already talked about this, but one of the most heartbreaking things about this book is the fact that when you're reading this is going to go on for 25 more years, and like the end is not in sight, like not in near sight, I should say. And it's just like kind of added on to just like how awful this situation is when you think about the characters individually and how they each cope with it and deal with it and what their own circumstances were. And Haymitch has such a bad deal because he's supposed to be even seen as privileged. He's living in the victor's village. He's getting paychecks from quote unquote winning this Hunger Games. Right. Everyone else in 12 is kind of like living day to day, trying their best to feed their kids, trying to make it through another Hunger Games selection and all this stuff. And then it's like you break it down to kind of actually like the pain and turmoil that Haymitch is going through. And like there's that line after when he's talking about like Lenore Dove and after her death, and he says, but I can't say I have no future because I know that every year for my birthday I will get a new pair of tributes, one girl and one boy to mentor to their deaths, another sunrise on the reaping. And when I remember that, I hear Sid's voice waking me in the morning, that raven first tapped on my chamber door. Happy birthday, Haymitch. It's like, hey guys, so the idea that he has to go on in life for the next 25 years mentoring these children, and he can never dissociate himself from it. He can never break away from it. It's all around him. He's literally drinking himself to death. It's like the cruelest way I think you can probably end a character's arc. But like I can't think of any other way to make it as impactful as it was. Do you know what I mean? It really is putting like such a period to the idea of the Hunger Games, to the series, to just like the point of it all. Peeta and Katniss were able, even though like with all the blackmail, with all the grief, with all the death, they were still able to come out with company, someone who understood what happened, and with the hope that they can make a better future. Like Haymitch is the only one who can't do that. Right. Do you know what I mean? And like the only thing he has is like these baby goslings that they give him. Yeah. And then he imprints on them immediately. I was like so upset reading that.
It's crazy, you talking about him, like his fate ended up being like him drinking and stuff. And on page 122 I wrote the foreshadowing, because Plutarch says, can I offer you something? And Haymitch says, I don't drink.
Yes. Oh man.
And it's like, but obviously like he works with liquor, he knows what it is and stuff. And anyways, it goes on, but it's just like there was so much in this book that it's such an interesting thing, because it's foreshadowing something that it's foreshadowing things that we already know, because we've already read what happens in 25 years. And it's just like, it's really like harrowing to read the beginning, having the context of the end. Yeah. But I think it's also, if I can say something on a lighter note.
Yeah, for sure.
It's impressive that Suzanne Collins was able to mention all these things in the original trilogy. And I have to think that when she wrote the original trilogy, she might have thought, oh, maybe one day I'll write more books, but I don't think she was like planting things having already developed the whole Haymitch story. You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's really impressive how she could make everything make sense in context and be like relate back. And this is the lighthearted part. It makes me think of in Phineas and Ferb, there's like these episodes with Meep. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And at the end, they're always like, next time on Adventures with Meep. And then there's like just these random clips. And I've seen like Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh like talk about then, like the first time they did that, they didn't actually have another episode planned. They just made a bunch of random clips, and then they just like had to like make
fill in the blanks,
fit all of the clips.
That's
and
so
there's
funny.
there's one clip at the end. It says like next time on Adventures with Meep, and there's like a clip that was from the first time they said next time, and you hear like a voice in the back that's like, it probably Doofenshmirtz or something like, hey, wasn't that clip supposed to be in this episode? Anyways, I just thought of that. I just thought it'd be funny to bring up and like lighten the tension, the mood a little bit.
Yeah. No, it is actually really impressive the way that she was able to make things so full circle. It's that's why I think it's actually so great that she decided to end with Haymitch's series. Well, for now, I don't know if she'll ever make another book. I feel like this is the perfect place to end it, though.
Yeah, because it really, especially with the epilogue.
Oh, the epilogue is the way you finish something.
Yeah,
like finish a series.
The epilogue happens after the original trilogy, so it feels like the perfect.
Yeah.
Like we got to the end, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's so fascinating that she's able to, like, there's just so much context, and like while giving us context, it's also just really exciting for the readers to be like, oh my gosh, this character I really loved, like let's see what their story is or whatever. I think I just feel like it was just really well done. And I mean, it's definitely, this book is the most, I think, for the fans books she's written. I think she wrote it with not only the intention of like, I had something more to say about the series, but also like, I know that the fans want something else. And if you're going to kind of do something for like, I'm not saying that she did this 100% for fan satisfaction, but if you're going to do something that is for your fans, I think this is just like the most wonderful way to do it, because it adds a lot of richness to this world, and it's not really taking away any of the themes and like the importance of what this series is trying to do and the statements it's trying to make. And I don't know, I just feel like it was really really well done.
I would agree with that. I think for me, it wasn't like it really said a lot of new stuff. It just really cemented. And if you didn't get it the first time around, you're going to get it now. This
book really puts an exclamation point, I think, on the series. You know what I mean? Like, just like, it's really just emphasizing a lot of the stuff that we kind of already knew. But it's just so much nicer to kind of have this like 300 more pages about what else there is to know about this book or this series.
And it's just like we've been saying, like it's really cool and impressive, and it feels very whole to now have really this strong lineage of characters. And you kind of see, you know, we see Snow from the beginning through all of them. We see Lucy Gray and how she affected Snow, and then how Lenore Dove interacted with Haymitch, and like a little bit of parallels there. And then like Katniss also like kind of recalls to Lucy Gray in some ways. You know, it's just like wow.
I also love that the only one person who we never really get to be in the perspective and mind of is like Lucy Gray. But she is haunting every single book's narrative. She's constantly in this story. Like, her voice is always coming through, even though we've never really, like, we're always seeing her from an outside perspective. It's just like, I think that goes to show like the impact of like Suzanne knows how to write a character with impact. Lucy Gray. When they saw, like, when Haymitch saw that they have a grave for her. And they're, oh my lord. Or like just like her mentionings in the end there, like Snow showing him footage of her to kind of like taunt him. Also, imagine being Haymitch, knowing that that President Snow had a like strong relationship with like a Victor from District 12. And he was just holding on to that for the entirety of the Hunger Games. That's also insane to me.
It really got me when the song came up. Of course, there's a lot of songs in the book that we've heard before, but the one that's talking about, like, I'm not going to say it right, the great there before or whatever.
The old there before,
Yeah, that one for some reason was really like, oh my gosh, like, that's Lucy Gray's here, you know?
Yeah. Well, okay, and I was also watching a video. If you guys are watching this, you probably are aware of her because she's very famous on YouTube and TikTok. Her name's Newly Nova. But she posted a vlog about this Hunger Games book. She was reading it, and she said it's so interesting to know that the old There Before is a funeral hymn, and the fact that she sings it in the arena as the snakes are covering her, and like she's surrounded by all the dead tributes.
Yeah,
it's just like really kind of like in the littlest ways, like Suzanne is like building this world and the lore and like the history of just everything so beautifully. And it's like to be in this book and have something so like in one page you're able to kind of like give a new context to a past book.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah,
so good.
Wow. Like what?
No, it's so true.
Like I don't even know what to say, you know? Yeah, it's just so good.
No, it truly is. And like this kind of really did give me, every time there's a new Hunger Games book that releases, I get nervous because I have a lot of nostalgia tied to the original trilogy. And it's also like, you know, you would hate for one of your favorite books to turn into the series where someone's just kind of beating this dead horse and like trying to get a little bit more story out of it. I'm so satisfied with kind of where we ended. I'm so satisfied to know kind of what we know now about Haymitch. I said the only thing I would actually be interested in if Suzanne ever wants to expand on this series is like if she ever wanted to maybe write like a novella about catching fire from Haymitch's perspective. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah,
but it's not needed. But it's just really interesting because the whole time I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could see kind of how this all went down in Catching Fire, like from Haymitch's view, because this is giving so much perspective. But I'll leave the cards in Suzanne's hands.
Just let us know, Suzanne, what your thoughts are.
Hit us up. I actually really hope she does actually, like, I would love to see her do a completely new series or like just book. I think she's got the mind of a genius.
Yeah, true. I like hate to let this one go, but it feels like we might have the 2-hour mark on our recording.
Do you want to maybe announce what our next book is going to be as we?
Yeah, you can, because do you have it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you guys for, by the way, listening to all of that talk. Yes. Let us know if you have any thoughts on Sunrise on the Reaping. Look at my tabbies, by the way, if you're watching. Yeah. I was tabbing away. I'm putting it down now, and I'm going to introduce our next book. Okay. So, for our next book, Laura and I are going to read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zahner. This is really exciting. This has been on my shelf for, like, literally years. I think I got it for my birthday a few years ago. Yeah, and I saw that this was maybe like the 4th anniversary of this book coming out a few days ago, and cool. I've just only heard good things. It's a memoir by, if you guys don't know who Michelle Zahner is, she's a musician. She's a rock musician. She goes by the name Japanese Breakfast. So if you've ever listened to Japanese Breakfast song,
I feel like I've definitely heard of that.
She makes really good music. But yeah, so this is her memoir. This is about her relationship with her mother, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's going to be our first memoir.
Yes, I'm very excited. And I think I hear it's a little bit sad. And after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, I mean, we're in a
Let's
pattern.
Let's just keep those good.
Keep these good vibes going. Truly. So, yes, please join us for that one if you guys want to read it. It's a short book, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Okay. We need something quick. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for listening to Read the Last Page. Our music and illustrations were created by the amazing Sage Timothy.
Yes, if you don't know our schedule yet, we host our book club episodes on the first Friday of each month. So for next month, like I said, we're reading Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zahner. That episode is going to be out on the first Friday of June, so be sure to pick up a copy and read it by then if you want to discuss it with us.
Before we get to the last page, though, we'll see you in 2 weeks for a catch-up episode where it's just your besties talking. You can listen to us on your podcast platform of choice, or if you'd rather watch your podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Read the Last Page, and we're also on TikTok and Instagram. And, of course, we would love to hear your thoughts on this book. So if you want to email us, readthelastpagebookclub@gmail.com. But for now, we want to say bye from B
and Dan. Bye.